Welcome back to the $1 Billion Podcast. We have a special surprise for you. If you're watching on YouTube, you might not see his face, but I bet you know his voice. Georgey.
I'm back. Oh, man, guys. All right. So today we are beginning the $1 Billion Podcast V2.
How many versions are we going to have of this damn thing?
It's all just jargon, right? Like, no one's going to know this is V2 other than the first 30 seconds of this episode. But, you know, I'm back, and I need to address my absence.
Wait,
because
before you do,
yeah.
Turn the camera on. We got to see you. We got to do it.
All right.
See him in all his blurry magic.
Do you want me to turn it back off now for audio?
Yes, sure.
All right. So, guys, I need to level with everyone. So, right, I can imagine how this looks. Let's think of the optics, because, you know, I'm an optician and I understand optics. And so think about it this way, right? Someone's just happily listening to the $1 Billion Podcast, and then all of a sudden, no George. What?
Baffling.
Where's George? And then all of a sudden, Richard is the CEO of Shared Practices. Where's George? What's SB Ventures? What? That's the worst name for a department ever.
That's awful. Really
What
bad.
is going on there? Yeah, terrible name. Here I am. I'm back. And I need to address something. So I said this in my interview with Richard. And, you know, we always like to miss on the side of authenticity. As a company, like, that's the one thing. When you're listening to us, we may not be buttoned up. We are uncancelable, but we are also authentic. And authentically, I will say that in my process of expressing my frustration with my position at Shared Practices, which was the beginning of the role change, I said some really hurtful things. And that is why I have not been on the $1 Billion Podcast. And, you know, there was some conversations that had to happen, and there was some time that had to happen. And, you know, and I'm happy all of those things happened. And now I'm happy that, you know, we can continue in a V2 where George understands the impact of hurting other people's feelings. And it was a valuable lesson for me. And so I apologize to everyone, and I want to be direct and upfront and authentic. And I'm excited I have an ad ready. We've got COVID Corner. I mean, we get to give the spiel for what everyone's going to listen to. Can we move on to the fun part of the show now? Can we
no, I appreciate it. And the only question we got this week was, where George? Just, you know, just that. So we thank Matt Ford for all his debacles in the last several weeks. There were many. We thank him for filling in, but George is back. We're ready to go.
So the question, have you seen The Office in that segment where Kevin is trying to talk with few words? Kevin, like efficiency from few words.
Yeah. That was that guy. Okay.
This question, where George? Who needs is, right? Like, is unnecessary. We know where George, what that means. George here. No worry, George here.
Yeah. Oh, you got an ad.
I got
it. Do you want to do your ad first?
Well, my ad bleeds into COVID Corner. So does your ad bleed into COVID Corner?
Of course it does. Duh.
So we have two ads that bleed into COVID Corner. So I'll do mine first, and then you can follow up with yours.
Okay. And quick disclaimer: we have new audio equipment, so if there's a little delay, you know, fucking deal with it.
Yeah, and we'll do our best to go on long-winded rants where we give each other a turn. So right now is my long-winded rant where I'm not going to let Matt talk, which is one of my favorite things to do. And so for today's sponsor, I wanted to go back to, I think, why we do COVID Corner in the first place. Free speech. And our sponsor loves free speech. And on top of that, our sponsor is something else, is very important to us, music. And so our sponsor today is Spotify. And if you're unfamiliar with what's going on with Spotify, they have the Joe Rogan podcast where he is doing 3 to 4 hour segments of COVID Corner. For his audience, he's bringing on physicians. He is speaking his mind about the pandemic. And the New York Times, I'm going to give you the article of a New York Times. Spotify backs Joe Rogan's disinformation machine from our lovely friends at the New York Times.
Them.
Yeah, right. The New York Times standing up for censoring free speech. I gotta love that, right? So our Spotify best ever. If anyone looking for streaming services, why are you using Pandora? Spotify is way better. It has radio. It can save music, and they support Joe Rogan, COVID Corner, and free speech. Ladies and gentlemen, our sponsor from mine, Spotify.
Beautiful, and they play the $1 Billion Podcast with no disclaimer in front of it. They're great people. It's a great company, and we support them. Love it. Love that.
And that was your sponsor too, right?
I did have I thought about doing that, but I found a better one. Okay, so we've talked a lot on this show about fakemask.com, right? Like we were big proponents of it. We tell everyone to buy the double incognito. Well, what I found out the other day is they've been canceled not once, not twice, but thrice. So they went from fakemask.com, and that was canceled. Then fakemaskUSA.com canceled. Then fakemaskUSA2.com canceled. Now they are fakemaskworldwide.com. And the reason I bring this up is they just came out with a new product. It is a incognito surgical mask. So it looks like those shitty blue surgical masks everyone is enamored with. Completely breathable. I just bought 2 for myself for the low price of $13, including shipping. I mean, what are we even doing here? That's
I was looking at it this morning. I am so happy we did this. I was so tempted. I have been getting my mask removed everywhere.
Not this one.
It's terrible.
No. This is completely
now undetected. They need to get one of those .RUs, like .Russia accounts, to make sure that they don't get removed anymore. Like they've got to do something different.
I know. When I saw a .com in there, I was like, "What are we even doing?"
Business.
Guys? Can we go to like? Is there a .China one, like a .ch, like something?
No. So yesterday, my washing machine broke, and so I call over this guy to come fix it, and his email address is at .ru, like .Russia, and I'm like, "This is genius." You just get off our servers. Why isn't Fake Mask doing this?
I know Russia will tolerate anything. You can do anything in that country. They really need to get on that. All right. Do we want to jump in COVID corner?
So Matt, what do we have for COVID corner?
Oh, we got some good stuff.
Yep.
I kind of want to start really light. I'm since George is back, I'm bringing back everyone's favorite segment, the COVID dystopian of the week. So you ready for some?
Absolutely.
All right. So I got 6 of them. Here we go. So number 1. So the education department has warned that it's going to be a challenge to motivate student loan borrowers to pay off their debts after they haven't had to pay for 2 years. That's a big you think. Don't let people pay for 2 years and they don't want to pay after that. Let's see. My third favorite Governor Newsom of California, he was spotted at a Rams playoff game. Now, that is in the state of California, in the LA County, where there is a mask mandate, where children are in masks all day, every day. He was there, seen in several pictures, unmasked. He was taking pictures with Magic Johnson, who, George, what do you know about Magic Johnson?
Am I about to insert a defamatory comment about HIV here?
Well, he has HIV. It's not defamatory. It's a fact. So he's an immune compromised person being...
But why was that relevant?
Because he's immune compromised and he's taking a picture with Governor Newsom, who's keeping all the children unmasked. Arm around, no mask. Very, I would say, hypocritical look for the governor there.
What a tough look.
Yeah, super tough. Good looking guy, though, I will say. I mean, I like that he's without a mask, obviously. But, you know.
See, I've been saying this about California for a long time. Fake care about COVID. That's been the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's all fake.
Yeah. Celebrities all over the crowd. Leo DiCaprio, chin strap mask. You know, it's rules for thee, not for me, as we always say. All right, next up. So there's a Massachusetts judge who upholded a school mask mandate. Now, George, we love comparisons, you know, that make people understand. If you remember, New Hampshire compared wearing masks to being in a penalty box. Well, the judge in Massachusetts compared masks He compared masks to wearing snow pants. It's like it's snowy up there right now. Snow pants. We all get it, right?
Yeah, it's seasonal protection.
Yeah, everyone knows to wear snow pants, just like your mask. Um, I had a Spotify in here. I'm going to take it out. Good people there. I'll take that one out. A new study came out of Cardiff University in Wales that shows that people wearing face masks are deemed to be more attractive than if you don't. So I'm
Yuck.
less attractive right now unless I had studies show that masks make people more attractive. Okay, last one and my absolute favorite.
Well, right now I have
You
an internet mask on.
Yes, you're completely masked head to toe. So the USA bobsled team, we know there's Olympics coming up in a couple weeks. The USA bobsled team has named their sled Biden. Now, George, why would the bobsled team name their sled Biden?
Oh my gosh, I can't wait for this. I have no idea.
You have no idea? Because nothing makes things go
No.
downhill faster than him. I thought that was good. All right.
Oh, I love that. Oh man, that's great.
All right. So what else we got here? So this is more serious stuff. Okay. If you want to hit the skip, go ahead. And if not, here we go. Economists from the Johns Hopkins University performed a giant meta-analysis, and they found that lockdown, school closures, and limiting gatherings had a 0.2% effect on mortality due to COVID. Despite the enormous economic and social costs, a 0.2%. Would you say that's a large effect, George, or would you say that's a bit on the smaller side?
That's horrible.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean,
All of that
I
for
think
point.
that I mean, it goes back to like, if you're sitting here and listening on the show. So I was actually at Midwestern the other day, my alma mater,
Mhm.
speaking to their dental school, their fourth year. I've been invited 2 years in a row to their practice management course, and I was there and talking to them, and I had to explain my distaste for COVID policy
Mhm.
by telling the story of how like COVID took away from me my first period of dental practice ownership stability that I was going to have.
Yeah.
And
Same.
it, what Matt and I really, why we care so much is because our personal financial security has been affected by these stupid policies that make no sense, as well as all the people that's restaurants have closed down and event businesses and everything economically that has shifted because of the stupidity of the legislation is infuriating. And to have someone do a meta analysis on the effectiveness of it and for it to come out at a 0.2% chance, it's like the insulting of the mask efficacy of 10% we talked about in the previous
Yeah.
episode. Like, gosh, that's it. It really resonates with the just the total manipulation of data that it's taken to get all this stuff through. I mean, it's really upsetting.
Yeah, it's one of the first in of many, deep dives into the success or, more likely failure of all the policies. And, to go back to your dental school or dental practice anecdote there, I mean, my practice in New York has not been the same since COVID. Like, just flat out is night and day from 2019 all the way through now, hasn't recovered. And a lot, not everything is due to this, but a lot is due to it. A lot is due to the fear of my patients in New York with all the news outlets they have up there and how strong the policies are up there. I mean, it's played a huge role. And you know, fuck those governors.
I mean, it's a real shame. And I think that, this is where I think my stance and my like Matt brings so what I keep telling Kaylee is I cannot wait until like 5 to 15 years from now when
Mhm.
all the documentaries on Netflix are going to show what actually happened
Mhm.
during COVID, behind the scenes with decision makers and everything, the way it's come out about Iraq, Afghanistan, all the previous wars. It's like everything's a conspiracy theory until it's proven. And, I have been a loyal follower of Lord Fauci on Twitter. And I wanted to, I mean, there was a tweet that you talked about of like all the people that called me a conspiracy theorist. I would like
Mhm.
an apology now.
Yeah, I'm waiting.
And yeah, I mean, it's like, Matt and I have been on this early, and
Mhm.
people thought we were nuts. And the more time that goes, the more favorable our viewpoint will continue to be. And it's just a matter of when or not people want to join us. But it's just, we happened to see it early because we were poor dentists who got affected early, and so we had our anger and our spite to take time to look through the research. But people will join us.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Saying you're exactly what I would say there. Next up, so have you been following this giant trucker thing in Canada?
No.
Oh, so there's a large group of truckers who have spanned the entire country of Canada and have made their way to Ontario, to where the governor resides, to protest, the vaccine mandates going on in Canada. Um, Now it's funny how they're portrayed in the media, right? Like the media will call them all racist. They'll cite one Nazi flag that was at their protest. Obviously every protest is going to have some loon jobs. You saw it in the BLM protest. Most of that was very peaceful. There were some people looting stores, right? Like in any mass
Yeah.
gathering of sort, there's gonna be a couple people who are just idiots, but they'll use that to paint the whole thing as racist. And now they're gonna start arresting them and you know removing the stuff from their trucks. What's great is this is coming to America. So
Ah.
from Canada to DC, there will be a trucker protest, and
When is this? I'm going to be in DC in March. Is this going to be in March?
no, this is soon. I would say this was in a week. So they had a Facebook page to organize the event. Of course, taken down, censored by Facebook to prevent them organizing this. But it will happen. Facebook can't stop them. So look out for big groups of truckers coming. I cannot wait.
Oh, that's going to be awesome.
Don't mess with truckers. They're fucking badass people.
I mean, for everyone listening, you guys, this is where we get our produce.
Yeah, you know?
These unvaccinated great heroes are over here driving coast to coast, giving us all the things that we consume in the mainland.
Yeah. I mean, Amazon package. How do you think they arrive in 2 days from across the
Yeah.
country? You think it's just magic?
These heroes.
They're heroes. And yeah, it's also funny too. Like the Democratic Party is about like the working class and the working class standing up to the elites. And then here is a literal working class standing up to the elite government. But they're like, no, 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 like not that working class. No, no, not this issue. Others, pro union, supporting workers, but not these workers. Just a little hypocritical. All right,
Because
my
these
last one.
workers are unvaccinated.
Yes, so they're bad. My last one is not related to COVID. President Joe Biden has given an official call to mobilize troops to Europe in response to Russia's aggression with Ukraine. Have you followed this at all, George?
No, but I always wonder why the U.S. intends on getting involved in issues that have nothing to do with the United States of America. I seem to cannot understand this about our foreign policies.
Great point. So the whole logic behind it is why they would care about Ukraine is they're worried about Russia's advancement, westward. So they want to surround countries in around Russia and have them join NATO. So they've long wanted Ukraine to be part of NATO. Now, the reason this is an issue is if you're a member of NATO, there is an article in there, I think it's Article 5, where if you get invaded or anything happens in your country, the rest of NATO is required to step in. Um, and no one's really understood why we would want Ukraine in NATO. They offer no political or economic advantage to America other than like building a fence around Russia. So, I mean, if he puts us in any kind of war against Russia, that would be that would be the worst move I could possibly imagine, especially at this time.
Well, I mean, I think it goes back to, I mean, I don't think people understand how much time I have spent studying the war in Iraq and Afghanistan post COVID.
Mhm.
Because for me, I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm on the $1 Billion podcast every week and I'm getting all of this misinformation. And I'm like, what are we doing? And I've been trying to figure out why. And so I've been searching through history to find comparisons that I could sort of relate to. And I mean, it just the rationale to go to war in general is just it's just not there. It rarely makes sense. And
Hey,
so it's puzzling, it's confusing, and it's a little concerning.
have you found like the was the reason around the Iraq War part of it? Because like wars are usually very popular. It's a way for a president to really boost their standing in the country. You think this is at play here?
No, I think that Biden's a one-term president. Isn't that kind of the way it is?
Yeah, he's not. It's not clear currently. Most likely, yes.
So I think that the war right now is against COVID, right? So they have their war. They don't need another one.
Mhm.
But in the future, yes, there will continue to need to be a war at almost all times in our country to satisfy, I think, political objectives. There needs to be some type of enemy.
Just strange and satisfying. The military industrial complex, which needs to be fed as well, and that's obviously effective this too. Um, so yeah, that's all I got. That's COVID corner. Unless you have more, George.
I do have more. So I think that, Matt and I both have different spins on COVID Corner. And I think it's interesting because a listener can get two different perspectives. What Matt brings is news, right? I think that's what Matt does exceptionally well. I think one thing that we always like to do is define unique abilities. And so for me as a listener, I would look at Matt's unique ability as he could be my source for all things in recent COVID updates because he spends so much time knowing who to follow on Twitter and staying close to the ground and hearing the unheard voices on the internet and sort of relaying that news to us. What I think I do well is I look historically and I look at trends and I look at comparisons, and I'm more of the conspiracy side of things where like I try to understand why people are behaving the way they are. And I think the thing that I want people to become aware of is in the past 12 months, Pfizer as a company, I showed Matt and Alex this about a month ago or a couple weeks ago.
Shocking.
Their revenue, if you look at go just do it up for yourself. Search, I'll pull it up myself. I have it here handy because I'm using it. Actually, Pfizer taught me something. So Pfizer taught me the value of lobbying. So let me show you the value of lobbying. So December of 2020, that's fourth quarter. That's the beginning of vaccines, if we remember correctly. Maybe healthcare professionals only in Q4 of 2020 were getting vaccines.
Mhm.
Pfizer reported a quarterly revenue of $11.68 billion and a net income of $595 million in that quarter. The most recent fiscal quarter that closed, Pfizer has grown their revenue by more than double, $24 billion in revenue in the last quarter, and their net income, $8 billion. Well, that's almost as much as their revenue a year ago. Their profit is up from a year ago, it is up by 16 times.
Wow.
So we have Pfizer. So I'm gonna discuss. Matt, is it okay if I divulge in some of the contents of a proposal that I'm writing, or no,
No,
as
it
it
sure.
pertains to this point?
Go for it.
So, if anyone has heard of the string theory, it is this mathematical concept. So people don't know this. I was one class away in college from a minor in math. And so I took a lot of like upper calculus classes, and one of my calculus professors, he did research on the string theory. And I was like, what the fuck is the string theory? Like, what even is that? And he goes, oh, it's a time travel concept. And the way it works is if you take a planet that's like 100 light years away
Mhm.
and you fold the 100 light years, then you can get there faster because you bended the dimension. And I was like, that makes no fucking sense. But essentially what Pfizer did is the same thing. They found a way to cheat to grow their business to a degree that would have never been possible in ordinary circumstances. They bended the dimensions of time, and they did in a year what would take a company from $11 billion in a quarter to $24 billion in a quarter and $8 billion in profit. That is the single greatest financial turnaround of a company in a 12-month span, probably in American history.
Yeah.
Right? How did
Mhm.
Pfizer do this? This is a case study. Whoever their lobbyist is should be their CEO. Like, that
Wait,
guy is awesome.
wait. That guy Pfizer has more lobbyists in Washington, D.C. than there are Congress people, if you didn't know.
I did not.
Yeah.
But whoever's behind like the efforts at Pfizer, whoever's the director of that operation, whoever is responsible, my hat's off to them because they have written the business plan of all business plans on how to use power and corruption and leverage to grow a business better than anyone I have ever heard of. And maybe there's a better case that they're copying, but to go from a $500 million in profit to 8.15 billion. I mean, think about this. In the last quarter, Pfizer has had $16 billion of expenses. That's more than their revenue a year ago. Like, without COVID, they go under.
Yeah.
At
So
this point,
think about what George is saying there. If you're like a high up in this company, if you experience that rapid growth, doubling your revenue and gosh, no, freaking almost, huge in profit, you're not going to let that go. You're not going to be okay with shrinking back. You now have expenses that have gone up to support that much higher profit. Like, you're not just going to give that up. You're going to fight tooth and nail for that to be a seasonal, every 6 month booster shot, recurring revenue. Approve it for under 5 to get a whole new segment of population. You're going to do everything you can to do that. And that's what they're doing. It's all to drive profits and revenue.
and so this is where when Matt was saying about the Russian war, I'm like, well, yeah, we just found the new war, right? Instead of paying the Department of Defense and these industries, let's just pay the pharmaceutical industry, right? It's safer, we don't have, we're not killing young Americans here.
We're saving them.
Yeah, we're saving them with these vaccines, but it goes back to, again, I'm sorry if I sound like a super pessimist on American politics, but it's like, the reality is this country operates this way and we all live in this country and we should probably understand the way it works. And it's not bad or good. All countries are like this. I can't think of a better place to live. But at the same time, this is our system and it's rewarding people who can get a lot of power and leverage. And right now, I mean, Pfizer's winning the game. I mean, the fact that they outdid Moderna and Johnson & Johnson, I mean, good for them. I mean, I bet Moderna doesn't look this good. Yeah, so I mean,
No, I mean they're very assuredly behind the Johnson & Johnson pause of that vaccine, which completely killed all momentum and trust in the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And then, yeah, when the vaccine started, it was very much Moderna and Pfizer. And then somewhere along the way, that lobbying effort won, and you didn't hear Pfizer or Moderna's name as much in the news. And that's not by accident. They don't have the lobbying power that
I
Pfizer.
watched Joe Biden say, "Go out there and get your Pfizer vaccine." And I was like, "Our president's on a Pfizer commercial. What is this?
Mhm.
What is this? When is this? Since when is this okay?"
Pfizer is the number 6 most owned stock by Congress people as well.
Oh,
Mhm.
do you have those numbers?
Yep. Well, I mean, whatever stocks that are traded by people in government, in Congress and Senate, is public knowledge. Which been a lot of there's a lot of talk lately about putting in laws that the senators and Congress people can't own private stock. It's bipartisan support on that.
So Nancy Pelosi, can you talk about her net worth and all of the dealings around that? I mean, I found that fascinating when we talked about
Yes,
that.
Nancy Pelosi's husband I think he's a hedge fund owner, and
Oh,
she has outperformed the market shockingly every year to amass a fortune above $100 million. Um, she is one of the richest people now in Congress. I mean, due to her insider knowledge.
yeah. I mean, so I watched this documentary on Netflix about HSBC. Matt, did you see Dirty Money, HSBC?
No, I've seen some Dirty Money, but not that one.
So Dirty Money is a great series on Netflix. And so what I like, we talk about Netflix a lot. Let me first talk about Netflix as a company. So the Netflix business model is a recurring revenue business model where they have to find compelling stories to tell. And their way of creating cheap content is by doing it documentary style, telling interesting, true stories without paying expensive actors. And so they essentially cut down their production costs. But what they do is they report on very historically accurate events. And so they did this Dirty Money about HSBC. And so what HSBC is, a Chinese bank. It is one of the largest banks in the world. And what they started doing is they started acquiring banks in third world countries that were connected to drug cartel activity. And so what HSBC did was they essentially now, I mean, think about it. Like the Mexican drug cartel, the last time I was aware of these numbers, their total market cap was about $15 billion. And Mexico's second largest business was Pemex, an oil company, at $10 billion in market cap. So Mexico's largest industry is illegal drug trade, right? Like think about that. That size of a company, $15 billion of an enterprise, they need banking. And HSBC allows for that type of banking. And they've been caught by this multiple times, and they just keep getting these small fine slap on the wrists, just whatever's necessary to make it go away, but their activity has not stopped. And it really speaks to the I guess my side of COVID corner, right? When I spend a lot of my time learning about these things, and it helps you look at a situation like COVID much differently. You understand why it is the way it is. And, you know, as people in media ourselves, I think we can also see it. And so what I hope, on COVID corner, and sort of my way of wrapping this up, is by helping you guys every time you hear something on the news, every time you hear something on a podcast, every time you hear something on the radio, anytime you see something in an article, think about where it comes from, why are they publishing it, and what is it intending to get someone to do? Because that's ultimately the critical thinking that the American consumer of media needs to have, because that's unfortunately the amount of corruption that this space has.
Agreed. Well said. I want to ask you about Netflix as far as
Yeah.
projecting forward for them, because a stat that I recently saw was either in the last quarter or the last year they still lost 30 million, and they haven't really forayed into other methods of media, the podcast realm or whatever else. Like what is their plan going forward, to grow revenue?
So I'll be honest with you. I don't know. I haven't read anything about Netflix's current financial standings. A lot of times they're like one of those companies like Facebook. So if you remember the history of Facebook, it was forever that Mark Zuckerberg was gaining customers, operating every quarter at a loss to
Mhm.
get market share. And eventually, a company like that can flip and become incredibly profitable very quickly. And so, my guess, this is just a guess, a projection, is that they are currently looking for that monetization method that will
That's the thing. I don't see
ultimately
it.
make them. So one idea that I have, which this would go against sort of their core values, but it would be monetized content. So they push a very politically favorable or a very influential piece to their consumers and viewers, because ultimately they need to, essentially what they're running into is the same problem a lot of recurring revenue businesses run into, which is their cost of a customer is maybe higher than the value, right? The $10 a month that people pay for Netflix might not be enough to pay for the production costs of all of the content that they put out.
Yeah,
And
think about it. Like they don't sell ads like Facebook would. Like their only product is they just raise their prices now $15 a month. You know, I'm sure they have some churn rate as far as losing customers, month over month. And how many more customers can they acquire to be profitable when their only offering is a $15 a month service?
yeah, I mean, it's challenging, right? And it's, if you think of the competitors, right? ESPN Plus, Disney Plus, Nickelodeon, right? All of
And
these people.
not on the live sports game at all.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. They are repurposing their current content to get the Netflix revenue stream. Netflix has to create all of the content with that being its only monetization source, versus like a Disney has so many other sources of monetization. But then think about it. Even if the company's losing a little bit of money, they could still get acquired, right? So Disney could acquire Netflix, or like a big conglomerate like that could acquire Netflix, and they would see a lot of value. So even still losing money and keep putting money into the company, will ultimately potentially be a good investment for somebody based on the value of the equity.
Mm,
Um, so I mean, to be determined, right? But they have to, if they want to maintain a self-fulfilling, self-sustaining operation, they need to have additional methods of monetization, or cut their costs, or increase their revenue per customer. Something's got to change.
yeah, I think we should look into that and circle back on a future episode. It'd be interesting.
Yeah, maybe I'll do a Netflix deep dive. Does that sound good?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'd love to hear more about what their plans are, and I feel like they're in a tough spot. We'll see what you come up with.
Yep. I'll look into it. So we want to talk Brady, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Can I kick off the Tom Brady conversation?
Sure.
So Matt's a Boston sports fan. Matt is, I very envious of Boston sports fans, even though they're the super spoiled and they don't appreciate all the wins that they've had. But I, as somebody who hasn't had a single championship ever on my primary sports team, the University of Arizona basketball, I can remember every Super Bowl Tom Brady's ever been in and where I was and when I watched it. And it wasn't until maybe after his third or fourth that I was like, you know what? This guy is just extremely good. And I just tip my hat to him. And I'm just going to, instead of hating him so much like everyone else, I'm just going to appreciate his career. And so those last Super Bowls that he won, beating the Chiefs in the AFC Championship games, like winning with the Buccaneers, I felt like I got to appreciate greatness. And so Tom Brady is somebody who, from a learning perspective, I mean, I have so much to say. I mean, he was the 200th pick in the draft, 6th round, 199th or whatever. And when he met Robert Kraft, he shook his hand and said, "Thank you for selecting me. I will make sure this is the best decision you ever made." Like, imagine a 6th round pick QB walking up to the owner and saying that. Like, the guy's insane. He
He
believed
was
in
the fourth
himself the whole
string.
time.
He was the fourth string quarterback when he was drafted too. They had 4 quarterbacks.
Yeah. I mean, and like you talk about a commitment to excellence, and his commitment to excellence for 22 years is inspiring, in my opinion, to everyone who looks to it. And I mean, his diet, his discipline, his studying of film, everything I thought was top notch. And to see someone like him retire is, I think, sad. So I have a lot of thoughts, and I'm curious to hear your perspective, because I think you have a very interesting one.
Now, first thing, I mean, he's one of the only athletes that if you split up his career, he's a Hall of Famer on both sides of it. He's a Hall of Famer in his first 10 years. He's a Hall of Famer in his last 10 years, which is absolutely insane to think about, especially in a physical game like football, and being able to have that longevity and that excellence all the way through. But my main comments are going to have a bit of a different spin. So you talked about us selfish Boston fans. Well, I'm going to show you how selfish we are. So he put out a retirement Instagram post.
Yeah, didn't mention you guys. I thought that was odd.
Several swipes just glowing about
It was
Aaron,
long, yeah.
Bucks and the owners and everything. Doesn't mention the Patriots one time. Now, my question to you is, am I in the right to be offended as a Boston fan that he didn't even make a mention of the Patriots, Patriot Nation? I understand he may have a grudge with Belichick, and that's probably understandable. But no mention of the Patriot Nation that supported him for years and years.
I don't think you understand. His grudge is never with Belichick.
Who's his grudge with?
It's with Robert Kraft.
No, you have it backwards.
Dude, really?
Yeah.
Okay, let me give you my thoughts. So I read through all of his posts, right? Yeah. It was like 7 posts in a row. And I was like, when is he going to mention Boston and the Patriots? And the
exactly.
Fans? I'm like, when is this coming? And then I finished it. I was like, oof, that's tough.
Yeah.
And bad PR move, right? Like, think about it, right? You're retiring. The game is over. You lost. It's over. Right. You're retired, right? What you've accomplished, you've accomplished. And in your retirement, you have to go out with grace. And to just totally neglect 20 years of your 22-year career in your retirement post is, I mean, think about it, right? Like, he could have done a really nice piece in the Players Tribune, which I love that outlet. He could have done a nice piece like Kobe did Dear Basketball, and he talked about his whole career. Like, I would have loved something like that from Tom Brady. But yeah, it was a total miss, and it's clearly still, he's salty. And honestly, I don't think he really wanted to stop. I think he was pressured off.
Yeah, I mean, there's always been pressure from.
I don't think it was his choice.
There's always been pressure from Giselle in his life to stop playing, and kids are getting older now. But it's just weird because like TB12 is headquartered at Patriot Place, in Foxborough, Massachusetts, and he clearly is going to be very much still in the world, with his businesses after football. It was weird. It would be weird that he would try to, maybe he just didn't even know, but he alienated, his biggest market and his most loyal supporters who are going to buy his shirts and his supplements and his powders and whatever else he's touting these days.
And you guys will take him back at one apology. or one statement or some recognition. I mean, you guys are Boston fans. Like, you guys will always be loyal.
We hold grudges. You know me. I mean, I hold
Wait, is
grudges.
Boston media mad right now?
Boston fan base is mad. I would say 70-30. Like, this was pretty insulting to the point where unless he does a
So the
grand gesture,
massholes are pissed.
yeah, unless he does a grand gesture like sign a 1-day contract, retire as a Patriot, do a ceremony thing, that whole song and dance, that would win back, pretty much everyone. But aside from that, I don't know if that's in the works. Like, it's kind of like we had a business relationship with him now, right? Like, he got his Super Bowls, the fans got him, everyone, it was a good business relationship, and then it ended, and then no hard feelings, and there you go. I mean, we're not going to support him going forward.
That's so short-sighted on his part.
Yeah, I know, it's weird.
I mean,
Very
he had the opportunity to have two fan bases, Tampa and Boston, right? If you're retired, you want business opportunities moving forward. That's your ventures moving forward. Why are you cutting off New England? That's a big, big economic hub.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't understand it. So, from my standpoint, I cannot understand the Brady. I mean, I read that and I was like, oof, bad PR.
Hmm.
But I think that at the same time, you know, okay, so help me understand. So let me give you my attempt at understanding what happened as a non-Boston fan, and then I would like your true information, as local fans always know more than national fans. So Brady, right? He said he wanted to play till 45. LeBron, and there is a LeBron conversation after this that we'll have. Don't worry. But like LeBron, he said he wants to play with his son, right? These
Hmm.
greats that are big on longevity.
Tiger
Brady's big
Woods
on
wants to play with
longevity.
his son too.
Yeah, right. Like these guys, the longevity greats, like towards the end of their career, they don't care about winning championship as much as it's staying around. And the fact that he retired at 44, not 45, um, to me, that's very significant.
Hmm.
I can't imagine him being happy with going out. I think that he's having some hard time, and that shows with the lack of PR
Hmm.
um, responsibility there. And so I think that what I saw happening is Belichick and Rob Kraft, right? They like Belichick is the sustainable winning formula for the Patriots, right? He's the brain. I mean, in NFL, it's the head coach is everything, and he's amazingly talented, super intelligent. And Brady has been kicking and screaming for years, wanting to be treated differently than Bill Belichick's kind of emotionless way of handling players. Bill Belichick has like a formula, and it's like, I will not pay more than a player is worth, and I'll trade them, and I will get someone else. And like he's robotic. And Brady has always been on the 1-year deals and all of the weird Belichick stuff, and he's never been treated different or special. And he's been going to Robert Kraft for years, trying to be treated different and special, and it never happened. And it came to a head, and he was out, and he wanted to show them that he could win without them. And now he did that. And now Belichick is going to win without him. And then they're both going to be thought of individually as great and together as great, which is what they both want. But I mean, if people think that the Patriots are not winning another Super Bowl, they're out of their mind. I mean, Belichick is the smartest man. Him and Sean McVay are the two smartest guys in football, in my opinion. And so, they'll both be back for years to come. That's
Yeah,
my take. I'm curious
I
to hear
think
yours.
I think that was very accurate. I just have a couple add-ons. Yeah, I mean, to pile on of he was never appreciated, like the whole Alex Guerrero thing, like how he was just not allowed in the team facilities and to treat the players like he was just basically banished away when he's Tom Brady's guy, and a lot of the players used him for his services. Yeah, he would not treat him any different than anyone else, and I think you know Belichick was the brains behind drafting Jimmy Garoppolo in the second round. Like Belichick's all about sustainability, long term. What's going to be best to set us up to win in future years. And I think he moved off Brady too early. I mean, obviously he won the Super Bowl, so it's like 2020 hindsight. But he was he wanted the long term solution, and he wasn't willing to give Brady more than a year. And the offer that he made was a very paltry salary. I don't know. I don't think the exact numbers ever come out, but it's supposedly was pretty insulting. And Robert Kraft made a big effort to stay out of all negotiations. It was only Brady, Belichick, and his agent and stuff. Because Kraft sees him as a son. I mean, for sure. So yeah, I have some negative feelings about how Belichick handled the end of Tom Brady's career in New England.
I mean, Jimmy G said he's leaving the 49ers. Do you think he's back in Foxborough next year?
No, 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 no. They have their guy in Mac Jones. They like him.
You don't think they're going for Jimmy Garoppolo?
No,
He's
definitely not.
leaving. He's gone.
I don't know why. Seems like a no-brainer for Brady to go to the Niners. I mean, that is just the perfect situation. He grew up in the Bay Area. They have an amazing team in defense. They have weapons on the offense. Like, that is a perfect one-year landing spot. Play to your 45. You're going to have a good shot at the title. Probably would at least make the NFC Championship game. The NFC is depleted right now. Like, it is.
Wait, are you saying why he's not playing an additional year?
Yeah, well, he should. Why not play with the Niners? Like, all the good quarterbacks, all the good young quarterbacks are in the AFC. You go,
Yeah.
you play at the Niners, you're in an NFC Championship game, no problem. Like, pretty much set your watch to it. I don't know why you wouldn't do that.
And I think that Kyle Shanahan, I have so many good things to say about him. I mean, the dude's a genius. And he would have been great with Brady. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. But I think that, are we good to, do you have anything else, Brady, that you want to talk about?
Let's go to LeBron, my favorite topic.
So, I think that, in terms of basketball longevity, right? LeBron is for sure pushing the limits on what we thought was possible in terms of age and performance and success and all that. And my question to you is, are you ever going to appreciate it, or are you just always going to hate him?
No, I'll always hate him.
Okay.
That's it. I mean, I can
that,
respect him that he is, one of the best ever. One of the best. Not the best.
That's fine. We don't have to go there. I'm fine.
but no, I mean, that's all. That's the only way. I mean, you can't support your enemies. I mean, you just can't do it.
I mean, as somebody, you and I are both really into longevity, right? And remaining youthful and active and energetic and all those things past what people thought were possible. And I think at some point, we just need to be fans of longevity in sports, regardless of who's doing it. And for me, that's where Tom Brady won me over. I'm like, all right, I hated you at the beginning, but you've just been doing this for fucking ever. And so, like, hats off to you. And I think with Tiger, like,
these years, is he still like putting up numbers these days?
he's number 2 in scoring in the league right now. He plays. I mean, the dude doesn't miss a game. Right now, he's playing center, so he's sort of innovating as a point center for the Lakers. So I think it's fascinating how he's just continues to play every position. Yeah, I mean, I follow the Lakers. I follow the NBA closely in general. So I'm a big fan of him, and I think Chris Paul's doing the same thing. These guys are staying around longer, and it's inspiring because Matt and I, like, we're both young right now, but we've got a lot of energy and we've got a lot of motivation, and like I feel like I can really relate to these guys that don't want to stop playing because they really love what they do, and yeah, I mean, just hats off to these people, because athletes, I think, pave the way for sort of elite competitive success, and as business people, we for sure look to it as inspiration.
Yeah, that is. I mean, that I agree with all that. Like, just someone playing that much of a physically demanding sport with so many young people coming in, trying to replace you and beat you, and still being able to succeed, is really impressive. And like you said, it does give me hope for my ability to be in business longer than is typical if I choose to. Right? Like, I think that's a good lesson to take from them.
Well, and I've read Walter Longo's The Longevity Diet. I highly recommend that book to anyone. And one thing he talks about is all about extending your youth, right? Where it's like we think 50 is like the end of youth potentially, and it's like if we just change 50 in our mind to 70, and we just behave like we are under 50 all the way till we're 75, then that's sort of like the kind of the first step that we do right now in our life. And
all right, talk me through this.
Ahead.
So, this longevity diet, why not? Is it just? I just think the preferred diet should be eat whole foods. If it comes from an animal or it comes from the ground, eat it. If it comes from any other place, don't eat it. Is that off? Is it need to make any additions there? Or
yeah. So can I go into longevity can I close out on longevity?
Sure.
We got 10 more minutes. So the longevity diet completely changed, that book completely changed my philosophy and mindset around longevity, because right, we think about it and we're like, all right, well, longevity, staying young and healthy and all that. And when we think about it, right, like on a biochemical level, everything we put in our body on a day-to-day, the vast majority of our body's source of nutrients come from our diet, right? If we think about it as like amino acids, proteins, like just the basics of chemistry of what we were putting into our body, over 90% of everything we put in our body comes from food. And so if we think of our food as medicine as opposed to as eating, then we're essentially like, all right, so where am I getting my knowledge on what medicine to put in my body every day? And it's like, all right, well, I'm going to listen to some girl who lost 40 pounds in a year doing some short term gains diet. Then maybe that's not best for my long term health. And so when you really like this guy, he has a PhD in biochemistry and nutrition, like biochemical nutrition, essentially. And he has this process. So he says that all his diet advice comes from looking at centenarians, right? People that have lived over 100, looking at communities with a high percentage of those and everything, right? And so essentially, when you do that, what you find is that a low protein, high whole grain carb, high unsaturated fat diet is just what our body needs to preserve itself, right? It's just what the human body needs to stimulate the pathways that do cellular cleaning. So we have, in our bodies, we have like dead cells sitting around, and like that's what contributes to aging. And so we have these regenerative pathways that get stimulated by large amounts of unsaturated fats and, kind of like long-term stages of ketosis. And that's why intermittent fasting is great. So yeah, I mean, I think when you understand the science behind it, you realize that the diet is really the primary mechanism for everything. And so I've actually completely cut out red meat. I'll do steaks on special occasions like we did together, but in general, I'm a complete, I try to eat fish 2 to 3 times a week, and that's about the only meat I eat. And I really have fun on carbs now. I go carb crazy, and I really enjoy it. I had pizza right now was my cheat meal, and like I'm cheating on dairy and carbs because it's less cholesterol, animal protein that ultimately will impact heart health. And so if you just look at the reasons why humans die, and you sort of just like put things in your diet to prevent those, yeah, so it's totally changed my philosophy, and I'm big on this now. I mean, it really
Oh,
changed my life, that book.
I want to also get you on the seed oil things, like
Yeah.
completely eliminating those because they're in everything. Everything in a bag at a grocery store, even a healthy one, seed oil is in every single thing, and that is one of
Why
the
is
least
seed oil bad?
because seed oil directly causes inflammation in the body, which we know how important that is with heart health and with everything else. Like we are doing everything we can to fight inflammation, and with that kind of thing in your food, anything processed, like even a healthy process, like it's got Himalayan sea salt, these crackers. No, like it's got sunflower oil, it's got safflower oil. Just look into that and see what you find.
I'll look into it. Let me look into it, and let me get you, because from my understanding, let me look into that. That's
Yeah,
a great point. Because from my initial assumption, I'd be like, well, it's an unsaturated fat, shouldn't be a big deal.
yeah, yeah. Let me know what you find. Um,
Okay.
no, but I like all that. Interesting point about the red meat and so you're a fish in carbs now.
Yeah, so it's specific types of fish. So high omega-3 fatty acid fish. So salmon, halibut, shrimp are sort of the three that are most popular in diets. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just in general, right? I want to be intentional about essentially the nutrients I'm putting inside my body. I don't know why I've never thought of it that way. I don't think I've ever thought of my food as medicine. That whole contrast. But in the book, he brings up this good point. He's like, um, essentially, your diet is a plane you fly, and it will crash at a specific time. You will die at a specific time, and the fuel you put in your engine is your pilot and your fuel, right, in your plane. And so it's like, well, who are you going to listen to for that advice? Are you going to listen to someone who's buff and has been for 6 months? Or are you going to listen to someone who has done research and knows what preserves the human body? And it's like, oh, I didn't realize how precious diet advice is. And I think I just started respecting my diet a lot more and
Now,
the
has this
impact it has on my health.
has this changed at all how you feel day to day?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah. I feel I've lost like I'm the lightest I've been, I think, in like a long time. So yeah, I'm definitely, so I think what the low protein diet does is, I think that when they've done studies on this, the muscle mass and muscle strength are not as correlated as people might think. So you can be a leaner strong, And so this diet builds a leaner, strong human, which is kind of, if you think about it evolutionarily, that's like more of what the hunter gatherer walking around Earth had, more of that lean strength. And so this diet will kind of give you that type of body type. It's just evolutionarily what the human body has adapted to.
Yeah, I could see myself at some point switching to more of that approach. I think right now
Yeah, you've got like 15 years.
I
Yeah.
prioritize muscle size over, kind of lean strength. Um, but I definitely see it. I mean, it's definitely, assuredly the best way to have a longer lifespan. So something I will shift to.
Yeah, and I think that, it's something that everyone needs to find the time in their life that's right for them to do that. Longevity is great on two fronts. One, because you can do what Matt's saying, and you can live a different lifestyle for 5 to 10, 15 years and then choose to make the switch. And your body will be just fine so long as you're young enough to before you make that switch. So I think pre 45, pre 40,
Yeah.
35, sort of what I'm hearing is you can kind of do what you want.
Yeah. And it's like, it's like for people listening, it's like what is your goal with your body? And if it's like George and you'll do anything it takes to live the longest possible, have the most energy as possible, then
Yeah,
here's your diet.
that's me.
Yeah, if you want to look a certain way, but you might need more protein. But I would just I would whatever your goals are, I think eating clean, whole foods, without the preservatives, whatever approach, like that's how you really get the results, I think.
Well, and I think that when you think about it, right, and let's go back to that Aaron Rodgers clip we played with Hunter Smith on, where he was like, let's talk about real health. Like, and he's like, food, what you eat,
Mhm.
diet, exercise, the impact that has on health. And it's like, if we're going to talk about COVID corner and how ineffective masks are and how stupid all these things are, we're like, well, what does impact your health?
Mhm.
Diet, exercise. Like those two, I mean, it sounds so stupid, but like those are it, right? That's like vast majority of your health as a human comes into your lifestyle. And whatever it is, whether and like Matt wants to be big and buff, like great, he should be. He's young and he's able, like he should. That's part of his enjoying of life. And everyone should do what they want, but just know the consequences and the literature and the knowledge that we all have to make the best decisions. Really, I think that's the real takeaway. Not what diet to eat.
Yeah, for sure. And part of the Mad Ford debacle in the last couple weeks, we've talked a lot about this diet and exercise longevity. So this is very bookended to kind of what this audience have heard for the last few weeks. With George back, it's good because we're going to get more of the business deep dive stuff, which I think people really like. So maybe some Netflix stuff next time or whatever George has cooking.
Yeah, I mean, I have an Aura Ring versus a Whoop
Oh no,
conversation, I
oh
think, in the
no,
future.
I'll be ready
Um,
for that one. Big
yeah,
whoop.
because I traded in my Whoop for an Aura Ring, and I have been so happy.
Oh
Really, really big fan.
wow, yeah, no, I'm ready for that one.
Yeah,
I'm
so
I'm
it'll be an
I'm
interesting conversation.
I'm a whoop super fan.
I was too,
Yeah,
until so my Whoop broke,
yeah.
and I couldn't get them to send me a new one because they're in shortages right now. And so I, out of necessity, canceled my subscription and got an Aura Ring because I needed the data.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny that you become dependent on that
Yeah,
information?
oh, yeah. If I don't know to the minute how long I sleep, from when I went to sleep, what my HRV is that day, like, that's not okay. I need to know that stuff.
Yeah, it's like flying blind. Yeah, we've become
Yes.
dependent on that information.
Yes. Yeah, because you modify your lifestyle choices based on what the data shows you. You track what habits are good for your sleep, what good for your recovery, how much you strain yourself that day to see how much you're straining your cardiovascular system. Like this, I can go on and on about the data that Whoop allows me that, you know, impacts my life, literally.
Well, and I think that like, the old fashioned thinking was work out every day and like go ham and go hard for key results. And what we're finding is proper recovery
Mhm.
and ensuring your body is well rested to have an effective workout. And it's like quality over quantity sometimes. And like I've been a little under the weather and I haven't worked out and my data's showing I'm not ready yet. So I haven't.
Yes.
And like that respect for recovery is what you really get when you understand the science behind your day-to-day health.
Yeah, and the first indicator of my COVID sickness was my Whoop. I was
Yeah.
very poorly recovered. My HRV was the lowest ever been. I was like, well, that's something's going on here. This ain't right.
So, I think I'm going to need to have to come over to that HQ and join you on that couch because this
Yeah.
internet's not going to work.
No,
I came in over home today, but this isn't happening again. So, folks, next week I'll be right there next to Guarino.
All right, George, why don't you sign us off here?
All right. You've been listening to an episode of the $1 Billion Podcast. We'll see you guys next week.